Finally, a memorandum of understanding between Iran and the US. After more than 36 times US President Donald Trump said it would happen, it finally did, so the pressure's off, right? Well, not really. In some ways, it's actually ramping up. Here's why. 1. Trump would be under pressure to prove that once open, the Strait of Hormuz will stay open. Remember that the strait was open and toll-free before the US and Israel decided to attack Iran. Now, when they did, the world began to understand the extent of Iran's leverage over the strait. Leverage, by the way, that the MOU does not necessarily erase. Iran may agree to, say, demine the strait, but what about its ability to attack tankers with drones, for example? Would President Trump be able to prevent that?
Iran has shown in the past that it will use whatever levers it has to be able to extract concessions, and it will try to do so again in the future. And many countries around the world, many companies are going to be very skeptical of U.S. claims because this time the United States was not able to protect the strait and ensure the flow of energy. So the United States will need to prove it the next time around, should that happen.
And domestically, even with the strait reopened, it will take a while for energy costs to come back to pre-war levels. And high prices at the pump are likely to remain a source of disgruntlement for voters, and therefore a point of vulnerability for Trump. 2. President Trump has to prove that he will get a better deal than former President Barack Obama. That nuclear deal, the JCPOA, saw Iran agreeing to limit its nuclear program, cutting its uranium stockpile, capping enrichment levels, and accepting international inspections in exchange for sanctions relief. Trump tore that up in his first term, but Iran was largely complying. The MOU doesn't clarify the nuclear question just yet, but it's expected to kickstart efforts towards getting a deal.
Even in the most optimistic scenarios, there's an accounting that needs to be done about Iran's nuclear program, given the destruction of the last war. And then the negotiations for the JCPOA took years. And to expect that these very complex issues that involve Iran's sense of sovereignty, that involve the security of the United States and U.S. allies, that this can simply be done in a very fast way, to me, is unlikely.
In many ways, however, the biggest pressure on Trump with regard to all of this is to show something at the end of the 60 days that justifies why the U.S. went to war in the first place.
I can imagine a positive scenario, which is that at the very least, the peace takes hold. The more negative scenario, short of all-out war, is that there are occasional strikes by both sides, that Iran at times disrupts shipping, attacks U.S. allies, and that scenario, unfortunately, to me, seems more likely. But there are a lot of question marks right now and not too many answers.
So the war might be pausing, but President Trump's troubles, at least in this regard, are not.